Uh, Good evening, all, and welcome to today's session. We shall start right away, and we are covering maternal and child nutrition. And as our course outline stated, that I posted to the group and on the Google Classroom, we shall move at each stage of the maternal and various childhood stages up to the period of adolescence. So today we are going to start with the pre-conception stage and discuss about the nutrition that is recommended for this particular stage. So as I explained earlier in our initial session, that the whole design of the course or the whole objective is to make you be able to make an informed decision on what nutritional requirements or how to design a nutritional plan for the mother and her child. So we shall see what is or what unique differences are present at the various stages of human development, and our focus is for the mother and the child. So we shall start with the preconception stage, move through the pregnancy stage, the lactation stage, and baby and toddler nutrition, and end with the adolescent nutrition as per our course outline. I hope you were able to access it and you have gone through. Our reference book is also indicated in the course outline, and it is through the life cycle, nutrition through the life cycle. The sixth edition is what we shall be using as our reference book, and all slides that I provide are just an outline, a skeleton, and you're all advised to make sure you go in much more detail by reading through the reference book or the textbook from which all this material is derived. As you join the Zoom session, please don't forget to register your attendance by filling in the Google form. Remember, I mentioned that attendance contributes 15% to your final mark that is automatically generated and awarded by the system. That's why it is an online form. Once you don't fill that form, then that 15% will not be captured. So don't forget to do so. I hope all of you also are registered or have been registered in the Google Classroom page so that you can access all these recorded sessions at any time you log on to Google Classroom. So to start today, I think many of you have already joined. We are going to explore and discuss more on the preconception nutrition. In the nutrition that is required when a planned conception is in the pipeline or the immediate period before conception occurs. In our introduction of today, we are saying that human reproduction is a result of a superb orchestration of complex and interrelated genetic, biological, environmental, and behavioral processes. All this is just trying to explain, first of all, the genetic makeup, the sex differentiation between male and female, the biological development of these various, of these two binary sexual orientations, and then the behavioral processes of courtship and all those other other processes involved. So in healthy individuals, these processes occur smoothly for both males and females and set the stage for successful reproduction. However, in less healthy individuals, these are individuals who are malnourished, who are underweight or undernourished, those who are obese and who might have pre-existing malabsorption syndrome, so any other conditions that disrupt these processes will diminish the reproductive capacity of any individual. When I lose connection or when you can no longer hear me, please post in the group so that I can be aware of whether I've dropped off the Zoom or I'm still connected. So sometimes conception occurs in the presence of poor nutritional or health status, and when this occurs, then the likelihood that fetal growth development or the health of the mother herself during pregnancy is going to be compromised, and you end up with features such as intrauterine growth restriction, very low birth weight babies, and also or malnourished mothers themselves, and a failure to initiate lactation after delivery. So for us to understand the whole discussion around preconception nutrition, we should be able to appreciate the definitions of some key terms as used in regard to reproduction. So we have several of them. There's infertility, infecundity, fertility, fecundity, miscarriage, a fetus itself, and also the endocrine system. So infertility, for purposes of this course unit, will be defined as involuntary absence of production of children. Means the absence of production of children is not by choice, but has occurred without the control of the individuals involved. Then infecundity is the biological inability to bear children after 1 year of unprotected intercourse. The opposite being fecundity, which is the biological ability to bear children. A miscarriage will occur as a result of loss of a conceptus in the first 20 weeks of pregnancy, also referred to as a spontaneous abortion. And then a fetus is a developing organism from 8 weeks, or developing embryo after 8 weeks to the period before birth, that we shall call it a fetus. And then the endocrine system will comprise of ductless glands, and examples of such glands are the thyroid, the adrenal, ovaries, testes. All these produce secretions that we shall refer to as hormones that particularly affect the reproductive functioning of the individuals, either in a positive or in a negative way. So as we go further, you'll see several of these terms being used, and these are their definitions. This is how they are defined here and how you'll understand them. So when you come across them further in our discussion, this is what I'll actually be referring to. So what is necessary for conception to occur? Usually in relevance to the reproductive system, we have to discuss the particular hormones that regulate the fertility process. These hormones here, the production of the hormones, the effect of the hormones are greatly dependent on the actual nutritional status of the individual, or the age or the growth status of the individual. The preconception stage, as I mentioned earlier, is that stage when planned conception may occur, or any stage above puberty when there is actual sexual maturity. So during this stage, there are particular reproductive hormones that are produced, and these hormones will be produced depending on the nutritional status of the individual. They all require particular substrates to generate them, to manufacture them, so that they can have an effect on the conception. So as we proceed, we are highlighting the particular hormones that are necessary. You can see here, the first one is the gonadotropin releasing hormone, abbreviated as GnRH, as indicated here in the table, and it is produced from the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is an organ located within the brain and is responsible for production of the gonadotropin releasing hormone. What is the action or function of this hormone? It stimulates the release of follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, or luteinizing hormone. So for us to understand the maternal nutrition, we must understand also the functioning of the reproductive system of both the male and female, the role of these hormones in regard to the health or nutritional status of the individual. Having this background knowledge, then we are able to supply nutrients that either enhance the production of these hormones, or nutrients that nutrients that decrease the production of these various hormones. We shall see ahead various nutritional states of the individual will produce a situation where the hormones are either in excess or are in deficiency. For example, during obesity, or in the obese state where there are excess fats in the individual, you'll find that these fats here tend to secrete many of the hormones listed here, especially the estrogens, that when in excess, these excess estrogens also cause amenorrheic cycles and also lead to infertility. So as a nutritionist, your management will be geared towards reduction in the fats by designing appropriate diets that can help the individual to achieve that goal. So we move to follicle stimulating hormone produced from the pituitary, and also luteinizing hormone are produced from the pituitary glands. All these glands are located within the brain, and the follicle stimulating hormone, its primary action or function is to stimulate the ovarian follicle growth and maturation. And from this maturing ovarian follicle, estrogen is secreted, and also endometrial changes characteristic of the first portion of the menstrual cycle in females. Whereas in males, follicle stimulating hormone functions or acts to stimulate sperm production in the male. So you can see here the effect of the hormone. Luteinizing hormone, also produced in the pituitary gland, will stimulate ovulation and the development of the corpus luteum, which secretes progesterone and the production of testosterone in males. All these hormones we are listing here: follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, testosterone, progesterone, estrogen. These are steroid hormones, and their origin, or they are manufactured from a lipid base, the arachidonic acid, that must be supplied through the diet of the individual. So very high supplies of these lipids will also lead to overproduction of several of these hormones, producing effects that lead to infertility. So all and then the rest of the hormones, their functions are clearly stated here, and where they are produced from, and how they affect either male or female fertility processes. What is the so what is the relationship between nutrition and fertility? Nutrition and lifestyles are now viewed as core components of the prevention and treatment of many cases of infertility. Nutrient intake from food and dietary supplements, calorie intake, and body fat affect fertility primarily by altering the environment in which eggs and sperm develop. This environment, as I mentioned earlier, could be the environment of undernutrition, an environment of overnutrition or obesity, an environment of disease, sickness, or malabsorption syndromes. And secondly, fertility can be affected by modifying the levels of hormones involved in the reproductive process. Mom. Yeah. Please, as you join, always remember to mute your microphone so that you don't disrupt our session. Okay, we can proceed. I'll again repeat, please, as you join the class, make sure you mute your microphone so that you don't provide feedback and disrupt our session. So I was mentioning that nutrient intake from food and dietary supplements, the calorie intake, and body fat affect fertility primarily by altering the environment and then by modifying levels of hormones involved in the reproductive processes. As I mentioned earlier, we are trying to see the nutrition during the preconception period. The foundational idea is that there is intention for conception to occur, and your role as the nutritionist is to advise or design a nutritional program that will support the conception process and make it successful. So here we are looking at all factors around nutrition that will enhance or increase the chances of conception occurring, or as a treatment modality, to improve fertility. Nutrient intake and body fat before conception also influences the mother's health during pregnancy and the growth and development of the fetus. So nutritional factors generally exert a temporary influence on fertility, and normal fertility returns once the problem is corrected. If the problem causing infertility was arising from a nutritional factor. So that is the relation between nutrition and fertility. When a nutritional factor is present, a nutritional deficiency is present, it makes fertility very low or much more difficult. In an attempt to correct fertility, you have to correct the nutritional derangement or nutritional problem that is present. Once the nutritional problem is corrected, then the adequate hormonal levels will be achieved. The environment for production of the eggs and sperms will be within normal ranges, and fertility can be improved or realized. So what happens in situations of undernutrition in regard to the fertility? Undernutrition means that very few or inadequate amounts of nutrients are being absorbed or being ingested by the individual, either due to absence or scarcity or due to symptoms of malabsorption. There are two examples given here, one about famine and starvation and how it affected the fertility rates of various populations. We are all aware in some areas, even within Somalia, there are areas that experience famine, that experience natural disasters or calamities, where food scarcity is present, where there's no food security, and with that, a corresponding decrease in fertility rates reported or present in those particular areas. Whereas areas with abundance of food resources, you will find a correspondingly very high fertility rate. So undernutrition among previously well-nourished women is associated with a dramatic decline in fertility that recovers when food intake does. So because of the reference book we are using, the examples given one, in Holland, a famine in Holland during World War II, that led to calorie intakes of about 1,000 per day among women, and this was associated with a 50% decline in fertility and a 53% decrease in birth rates. And here, as we go ahead, we shall see why an undernourished woman or man will tend to become infertile and therefore not be able to conceive in the case of the woman. So fertility status improved within 4 months after the end of the famine, but for many women, it took as long as a year for their menstrual cycles to return to normal. Similarly, in this year, famine in Bangladesh resulted in a 40% decline in births. So you can see the impact here of undernutrition on fertility. In the preconception period before the mother conceives, if she has a severe undernourishment due to various factors, then actual conception may not occur. Very low fertility rates and also very low birth rates will be in that population. Earlier on, we mentioned that despite all these adverse events, despite these famine conditions, there will still be some individuals or some mothers who will conceive, but will have low birth weight babies, intrauterine growth restriction of the fetus, and also other adverse outcomes, maternal outcomes, and later on during childhood, several nutritional conditions will also be present among these children. So as we move from stage to stage, we shall see the various requirements, and in particular for today's session, at the end of which we shall provide recommendations of nutrition for the pre-conception period. So another scenario is when, or to discuss the relationship between the body fat and fertility. Excessive and inadequate levels of body fat are related to declines in fertility in both women and men. These are two extremes, the excessive body fat and then inadequate levels of body fat. So body fat in itself, or body fats in themselves are very essential in the nutritional status of the individual. When it's too much, it will produce problems with fertility, and when it is too little, it also produces problems. So we shall discuss each extreme individually. But why is fat important in fertility? We are describing it here by saying that fat cells produce estrogen. Remember, we saw or we discussed the functions of estrogen, the functions of testosterone, and leptin. Leptin, as you're aware, is essential for regulating the appetite of the individual. So fat cells produce estrogen, testosterone, and leptin, and their availability changes with body fat content. Changes in the availability of these hormones interfere with the reproductive processes such as follicular development. If the follicles don't develop to maturity, then ovulation will not occur. And if there's no ovulation, then that will result into infertility in the female. Whereas in the male, there will be no sperm maturation and also production. So the fat you can see here is very essential because they produce, the fat cells themselves produce these various hormones that are very essential in the reproductive process. So one extreme is excessive fat, which occurs in conditions of obesity. Obesity for our session is defined as a body mass index with values above 30 kilograms per square meter. Most obese women and men are not infertile, but they are more likely to be subfertile than normal weight individuals. Subfertile here we're referring to having some difficulties, especially in sperm maturation, in sperm production, and for women, some anovulatory cycles or difficulties in follicular development because of the irregularities in amounts of reproductive hormones. So obese women tend to have higher levels of estrogen, androgens, and leptin than non-obese women. These hormonal changes favor the development of menstrual cycle irregularity, occurring in up to 47% of overweight and obese women, ovulatory failure, and anovulatory cycles, and amenorrhea. Amenorrhea is lack of menstrual periods, and anovulatory cycles. A woman has normal menstrual cycles but without ovulation. So there's no egg produced, and now no egg for the sperm to fertilize. Just because in obesity there are higher levels of estrogen. I'll again take you back so that to remind you of the various functions of these hormones. Estrogen here, that is produced in the ovaries in the female. The function of estrogen is to stimulate the release of this hormone from the hypothalamus, gonadotropin releasing hormone, in the follicular phase and inhibits in luteal phase, stimulating the thickening of uterine wall during the menstrual cycle. So if it is inhibiting the luteal phase here, luteinizing hormone that promotes the luteal phase, that is the period when ovulation should occur. So if there are excess amounts of estrogen, then the luteal phase will not occur, meaning that there will be no release of the egg for fertilization. Those are menstrual cycles without ovulation are resulting in infertility. Obesity in men is associated with lower levels of testosterone and increased estrogen and leptin levels. These changes in hormonal status are related to reduced sperm production in 16% of obese men and higher than average rates of erectile dysfunction. So loss of body fat is related to improvements in hormone levels, oxidative stress, and chronic inflammation, and conception rates in both men and women. So you can see here the remedy or the solution is a reduction in the body fat. And our recommendations shall describe how this can be achieved besides in the physical activity or through an exercise program by some dietary restrictions that promote lipogenesis or storage of fat. So that is one extreme of excessive fat in the individual. What about the other extreme where there is inadequate body fat? That is much less body fat. So it appears that a critical level of body fat, which occurs in individuals with a BMI, a body mass index, below 20 kilograms per square meter. Below 20, many use the cutoff of 18, but below 20 for our purposes here, this is severe undernourishment and will have very low body fat, is needed to trigger and sustain normal reproductive functions in women. So above this to below 30 is a normal range, and that usually is for normal reproductive functions in women. So low levels of body fat during adolescence is related to delays in the age of onset of menstruation and to reduce fertility later in life. Why is this so? It is so because low fat is required for the synthesis and production of the reproductive hormones. So when there's very low fat levels, the substrates necessary for production of these hormones is not in adequate quantities. So the hormones are produced in very low values below normal, causing delay of onset of menstruation in adolescents or in people already in puberty to have periods of amenorrhea, irregular cycles, and ovulation. In men, you have problems with sperm production, maturation, and also lowered libido. So impaired fertility in underweight women often takes the form of delayed time to conception and amenorrhea. Amenorrhea, as I mentioned earlier, is a woman having no periods for a long period of time, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, without receiving any menstrual period. That woman is referred to as amenorrheic. So lowered libido and reduced sperm production in the male have been identified in underweight men with low levels of body fat. Low levels of body fat, we are defining it here as having a BMI below 20 kilograms per square meter. So there are two extremes: excess in obesity and then inadequate in BMI below 20, producing fertility problems. The preconception period is before the woman conceives or before the woman gets pregnant. What are the conditions before then that are preventing her from getting pregnant in relation to her nutritional status that can be corrected by nutritional means and will appear under the recommendations that we shall provide at the end of today's session. Weight loss and fertility in normal weight women and men. Here we're referring to a woman or man who has been of normal body weight and then starts to lose weight or grow thinner or to shed off weight, either when they have decided to engage in exercise activities or being put under rigorous training sessions, or in cases of eating disorders where they are voluntarily having decreased intake of food. In normal weight women, weight loss that exceeds approximately 10 to 15% of user weight that decreases estrogen, luteinizing hormone, and follicle stimulating hormone concentrations. These hormones, as we mentioned earlier, are very essential for the reproductive process, and they should always be within normal ranges. So when these hormones, their concentrations decrease, it means the reproductive functioning is affected. So when there's weight loss from in a normal weight woman or man, there's a corresponding decrease in amounts of these hormones are present. So in such situations, weight gain is the recommended first-line treatment for amenorrhea related to low body weight. However, twice as many infants born to underweight women, as we mentioned earlier, even in adverse conditions where these women are undernourished or having lost weight, some of them still proceed to conceive, and after conception, then they will have a small for gestational age babies as compared to those born to other normal weight women. So here, weight loss decreases fertility in men just as it does in women. In the classic starvation experiments, these are derived from our reference book, and it's a book talking about World War II experiences where men are experiencing a 50% reduction in caloric intake, reported substantially reduced sexual drive. Sperm viability and motility decreased as weight reached 10 to 15% below normal, and sperm production ceased entirely when weight loss exceeded 25% of the normal weight. So as someone gets severely wasted, so does their fertility rate also decrease. You can see here where there is non-existent sperm production in individuals who will have a BMI below 18. So we have gone through the weight status of the individual, the fat, amount of fats, whether low or high in the individual, and amount of fat is related to calorie intake or the carbohydrates. The weight status or the build of the body is related to the protein intake. And now we are moving to the micronutrients, very essential in the preconception period, deficiencies of which will produce adverse outcomes, abnormalities in the fetus, and also morbidity within the pregnancy period. And the two are selected for our course is folate or folic acid and iron. So the preconceptional folate status is very essential to be known, and supplementation are provided either through diet or through fortification of foods or through supplementation with pre-prepared formula. So folate status prior to conception is an important concern because inadequate folate very early in pregnancy is related to the development of approximately 50% of cases of neural tube defects, such as spina bifida. There is another benefit related to improvements in folate status before conception. It lowers the risk of delivery of a baby that is small for gestational age. Risk reduction does not appear to occur when inadequate folate status is improved after conception. So here we are stating that folate that will also come under our recommendations is much more effective or much more useful when it is consumed or taken before conception to reduce the risk of development of neural tube defects, and it has very little risk reduction occurring if the start of consumption of folate occurs after after pregnancy in later weeks of the gestational period. So the recommended intake of folate is 400 micrograms of folic acid daily for preconceptional women that can be obtained by consuming a serving of either breakfast or other meals that are fortified with folic acid. Fortification of a food product means that these trace nutrients, these micronutrients, are processed or added to the foods, the staple foods consumed by individual families on a daily basis. So fortification, for example, occurs in salt in form of iodized salt, where iodine is added to salt, various vitamins added to several cereals or flour products, and also maybe in bread or other food products consumed, micronutrients added to address populational deficiencies that could be occurring. So in any food product, when you read the nutrient label, it tries to specify these various nutritional values fortified or added to that product. The second micronutrient is iron. Iron deficiency is the most common nutritional deficiency worldwide, and iron deficiency prior to pregnancy increases the risk that iron deficiency anemia will occur during pregnancy and that infants will be born with low stores of iron. Iron deficiency before pregnancy also reduces related rates of preterm delivery. The iron status can generally be improved by regular consumption of vitamin C rich fruits and vegetables along with plant sources of iron, iron fortified cereals, lean meats, and by the use of modest doses of iron supplements up to 18 milligrams a day if needed. One basic thing we're emphasizing here is the encouragement of consumption of fortified foods with these micronutrients, folic acid, iron, zinc, and several vitamins that would be present. So by reading the food labeling, the nutritional value of any food, you're able to identify the nutrients necessary in the preconception period that have been embedded or added to these food products. Zinc status and fertility in men. Zinc plays an important role in reduction of oxidative stress, sperm maturation, and testosterone synthesis. It has been investigated for its potential role in infertility. Zinc deficiency in men has been found to be related to poorer sperm quality and sperm concentrations and to abnormal sperm shapes. Although it is clear that zinc deficiency can impair normal reproductive functions, it is not clear that supplemental zinc improves fertility in the absence of zinc deficiency. So here, supplementation is only indicated or only required if it is evident that there is zinc deficiency and there's no substantial evidence or information that supports any kind of provision of supplements without present deficiencies. Here is a table included about the preconceptional nutritional exposures that may disrupt fetal growth and development. And you can see here several indicated under the weight status, the nutrient status, alcohol, and diabetes. One thing to mention under the nutrient status is the excessive vitamin A intake, retinoic acid, that can increase the risk of the fetus developing facial and heart abnormalities. Vitamin A is a very common ingredient in cosmetic products that were used and for the skin. An absorption occurs through the skin, and this could, as we have mentioned here, cause development of facial and heart abnormalities in the fetus. And recommendations during the preconception period should be given to avoid cosmetic products, creams, lotions, or that have or injections with very high concentrations of vitamin A in an attempt to treat uh, acne or pimples. And this is something that should be asked during the pre-conception period. Other nutrients here, you are seeing iodine, iron, and all these have an influence in the fetal growth and development. So lastly, what are our recommendations for today? For the preconception period, for preconception nutrition of the individuals, both the male and female. So here it is recommended that women who may become pregnant, one, consume up to 400 micrograms of folic acid from fortified foods or supplements in addition to dietary folate from a variety of foods. So recommendations of particular foods that could be sources of folic acid or recommended of foods that are fortified with folic acid. Usually fortifications come in combination: folic acid, iron, vitamin A, and many other vitamins, and iodine are present in several food products or several cereals that are served in routine staple meals. That is one about the folic acid for the preconception period. And then vitamin A, where no more than 10,000 international units should be consumed from supplements daily. And then limit or mid alcohol containing beverages. Recommendations for nutrient intake given in dietary reference intakes should be applied in making food and dietary supplement decisions while paying specific attention to the tolerable upper intake levels for nutrients. And lastly, for both women and men, energy and nutrient requirements should be met by foods rather than supplements if possible. That means diet or dietary plans or dietary patterns should be followed. Our reference book has various tables that show various dietary plans for either the male or the female, and I would encourage you to go and study these tables. I couldn't include them in my slides of today. There are tables in our reference books that highlight the daily dietary plans for the preconception period, examples of various foods that should be consumed in the preconception period. Those foods there may not, they apply according to the culture in which you could be present, and you can relate that to your own step environment, the foods available in your areas, to relate them with the food nutrients needed that can be consumed within this period. We have about 5 minutes left, and we shall use this period to answer any questions from any student who could be having a question. So to ask a question, just unmute your microphone and please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. And thank you for your lecture, first of all. I like to ask you three different questions to address the lesson. As you mentioned that fats, so you say that low fat is about women can cause a menstrual cycle for 2 months. So my question is, how can it affect infertility for a woman about low fat? Second question is, it has already been mentioned that 1 gram of fats means or equal to 9 kilocalories. So how many kilocalories consumption is needed for a daily consumption for pregnant women? And that question is, you said zinc environments or zinc plays important role. So if a zinc deficiency is a problem for a man fertility, how is it or how can it be prevented? I needed to hello, hello, lecturer.
Yes, yes, please, anyone else with a question, please ask so that we answer them at the same time.
Do you hear my question?
Yes, yes, I got your three questions. I'm asking if there's any other student with any other question. Okay, if there's no other, let me answer these questions. Just to note that I got your question clearly. You're asking one, whether low fat in women who may have up to 2 months of amenorrhea and how this leads to infertility. The second one was about 1 gram of fat producing 9 kilocalories of energy. So what is the recommended? And lastly, about zinc. Now to answer question one that relates to low fat in women, as I mentioned earlier, low fat in women, those are circumstances of undernutrition where you'll find either one, the BMI is less than 20 kilograms per square meter, or in women of normal body weight who are rapidly losing weight. From the beginning, remember, these reproductive hormones require substrates to manufacture. They are produced within the endocrine glands. And the substrates or the initial part for manufacture of these hormones is from the fat. Specifically, the fat is arachidonic acid that is used for the manufacture of the steroid hormones. Steroid hormones are estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. So with low fat in these women, there is no substrate to manufacture estrogen. It means that if estrogen levels are low, the further maturation of the follicles will not occur. The egg will not be released, and therefore the various changes within the uterus in regard to estrogen. Estrogen causes thickening of the uterus, and that thickening there of the endometrial layer is what is shed out as menstrual blood. So when you have very low levels of estrogen, that thickening of the endometrial layer of the uterus will not occur. There will be no ovulation in this woman. Therefore, she will not see her periods and she will not release an egg. So even if the sperm is present, the sperm will have no egg to fertilize and this woman remains infertile. So what happens to her when you increase her body weight or you increase the fat levels is that you're going to provide more substrate for the manufacture of the reproductive hormone, especially estrogen. When the estrogen levels become normal, she will be able to ovulate. The endometrial layer will thicken, and that layer will be shed off as menstrual flow, and therefore her periods will reappear and she will become fertile again. About the fat and kilocalories released, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't want to go in specific details of these various grams and kilocalories, and therefore they are present in our reference book. There are several tables there that have all these figures. Please, I recommend that you use these tables. These tables have a specific food against and also describes how many calories are derived from that food and what is recommended for that period of time. About zinc, zinc, as we mentioned earlier, is very essential in males for sperm production and sperm maturation, and supplements of zinc are present that can be given to individuals or to men who are already showing signs of zinc deficiency. What I was emphasizing is that it is not as effective in men who are not showing any signs of deficiency. Those who are showing signs of deficiency of zinc, one, you can see the lower sperm count. It is skin peeling in the individual, and also some will have shedding of their intestinal mucosa that could be expressed as diarrhea. So I hope I've tried to answer your questions as much as possible.
Hello, teacher.
Yes, please go ahead. Any question?
So, teacher, I ask you two questions.
Yes.
Number one, how to impact nutrition fertile hormones? We are two ways. Number two, give us a consultation about what master nutrition opportunity our community or market. If you have information or give us consultation about this course. I think the next question is a history question. Oh, thank you, teacher.
Please repeat. I did get you clearly.
Yeah. Okay, the first question, how to impact nutrition fertility hormones, how? Next, a history question, a consultation about what course of nutrition, importance of the market. I think understand.
I've not got your questions clearly. Let me try to repeat what you have asked about and see if I've got your question clearly. You are trying to ask how to use nutrition to improve fertility, and then The second question, I didn't get it clearly.
Second question is in course of nutrition, importance of the health or importance of the market. Give us a consultation about, I think, a history of lesson.
You ask about the importance of nutrition in the market.
Yes.
Okay. If I understand you well, you ask about the importance of nutrition in the market, in the job market, in life outside there, or how you will apply this knowledge in the for your practice. Um, I hope I've understood your question, because what I'm getting is how this can be understood or can be applied in the market, or how this information can be delivered to improve fertility of women. And here it is first by understanding the logic behind why certain foods should be consumed, or why certain approaches, or to explain to individuals why infertility is occurring. So once you understand how these nutrients can be used to encourage or promote conception in the female. For example, if a female is having a low weight, you design foods to increase the weight of that individual. And as again I mentioned, our reference book has tables on what particular foods are necessary to increase weight of the individual, or what particular foods or dietary requirements can be used to decrease the weight, and what exercise regimens can be used to improve the outcome. That is as much as I understood your question. I may not have got it clearly. Please go ahead and also type it for me. You send it on to my inbox, so in the group, then I can be able to answer you directly in case I've not understood it well today. We are so much out of time. I thank you all for attending today's session. This record is going to be uploaded to Google Classroom. Please find it there. Don't forget to register your attendance, and I'll be expecting you in particular to send me your question on WhatsApp, so that I can respond to you very clearly when I've clearly understood and seen the question you're asking. Have a good night until next Wednesday, when we shall have another session. Stay safe.
Goodbye.